Today at the show, we've got Bryan McMurtrie with Holganix. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tom.
We'll let you talk a little bit about yourself and give an intro as to what your role is at Holganix, and then
Yeah.
we'll dive into what Holganix is and what you do and how you do it.
Okay, perfect. Yep. So I am the regional sales manager for Illinois. So I'm covering the entire state of Illinois. I've got a couple sales guys that work on my team and some sales ops and logistics and stuff like that. But I've worked in the industry, the agricultural industry, for close to 20 years now. I've kind of done a little bit of everything. I've worked in retail, I've worked in precision, I've worked in seed sales. More recently worked on the tech side of things, and then now I'm here at Holganix and was able to join this awesome team.
You got it. So tell us a little bit about the background of Holganix. What do they do? How long have they been in business? How are
Yep.
they different than some other companies out there? And we can dive into those one at a time, but I'll
Yep.
let you
Yep.
explain who and what Holganix does currently.
Yeah, so Holganix is a soil health company. We focus on soil health, regenerating the soil, building it up, and there's a lot of aspects whenever you do that, a lot of positives. So Holganix has been around. Well, we've been around for a lot longer than we have in row crops, but we started in turf and ornamental. Baird Ursick, our owner, our CEO, had a really large lawn care business in Pennsylvania. And he used to put down an awful lot of fertilizer on these yards. And he would say, we put a lot of fertilizer on our yards to make them green and make them pretty. And he was in the Chesapeake Bay area. So there was an issue with a lot of algal bloom and hypoxia and different things like that in the Chesapeake Bay area. And they actually came to him because he was the largest lawn care business in the area and said, hey, we need to do something different. And it just so happened that year too, there was kind of a tragedy that his fertilizer shed burnt down. So he had no fertilizer to spread, so he had to come up with other options. And that's where Holganix was kind of created there. It was created for turf and ornamental. That was back in, I believe, like 2016, 2015, somewhere back in there. Since then, it has progressed into the agricultural side of things. It's kind of a funny story is a couple Amish guys got a hold of some of our product and used it on their pumpkins or watermelons, all for what they were going for contest. And they won the contest. They called us up, wanted to place an order. They're like, we're farmers, we want to place an order. Well, we don't sell to farmers. So we ended up having our very first grower meeting with this Amish community and started selling and said, hey, we really got something here. So since then, we've grown. We're on over 3 million acres today.
Okay. So it's a fertilizer company.
It started out as a fertilizer company. Yeah,
Yeah.
it did. Yep.
Yeah. So you talk about soil health. So what are we actually trying to do with what we have?
Yep.
And how do we utilize that for next year's crop?
Yep, absolutely. So in the past, to drive soil health, we've always been told reduce tillage, plant cover crops. Those practices will help build biology and build soil health. Most all soils out there today are bacteria dominant. We test them, we find out it's 90+% bacteria to 10% or less fungi.
What should it be?
So ideally, we want to get that to a 50-50 ratio. The fungi are what we consider the predators, and we want to reintroduce those predators to that environment. Now, the bacteria are great. We need the bacteria there. The bacteria do a lot. They consume those nutrients and they hold on to them. But the problem is they hold on to them and they're not readily available and plant available. So we introduce that fungal network, the fungi out there, and even protozoa and beneficial nematodes that then feed on that bacteria and release that back into the soil. And make a lot more available to the plant. So if you ever do a T&D test, it's going to show you your available nutrients, your unavailable nutrients. Well, those unavailable are exactly that. They're unavailable. How can we take like those P2s and release them and get them into P1 so it's readily available for the plant? And that's what Holganix ultimately does on the fertility side of things is we help release all of that. And we balance out that biology in the soil and bring that fungi to bacteria ratio as close to that 50-50 as we can.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned phosphorus specifically, right? P1 and P2. Yep. What about potassium and sulfur, nitrogen, and
yep.
Some of the other, I don't want to say major players, those are major players, and then I'll go into what about some of the micros, right? The manganese, the moly, and so on.
So it's the same way with them. One of the biggest things that we can do is help you cut your P and K. Because you have a bank out there, and let's utilize that bank. Especially input costs are through the roof this year. Fertilizer costs are crazy. How can we help you cut those inputs? And if you have cut inputs because of cost and cut your fertilizer, we can work as an insurance policy for you. If you're concerned that, hey, I cut this, my plant's going to suffer, well, we're an insurance policy. We can help release all of that. On the nitrogen side of things, what we do is help you become more efficient in that nitrogen cycle. So there's studies that have came out that only 36 to 42% of the nitrogen that we put out there is available or used by the plant. We lose the rest of it, whether it's through leaching or nitrification, just volatilization and all of that we don't use all of that we put out there. So how can we drive you to be more efficient in your nitrogen use? Iowa State come out and the new number now for removal rate is 0.53 pounds per bushel. So how can we get guys down to that and efficiently and effectively use the nitrogen that's out there and be able to go from 1 pound down to 0.5, 0.6 and still grow an amazing crop?
Yeah, I've seen in all of the testing we've done, about 0.67 or so is the most efficient we've been. So we're kind of knocking on the 0.53 door, right?
Yep.
But that, you have to have a lot of things line up. And I know a lot of times growers don't, they don't want nitrogen to be their yield limiting factor, right?
Correct.
We want it to be water or temperature or lack thereof, those. And so how do we create a situation, or how much knowledge do you have on the fact that we don't create nutrients and making them be the limiting factor, the yield limiting factor? I mean, is there testing that you do, or do you have a lot of data to back up some of the thoughts here, or what do you have?
So we've got a ton of data to back all of this up. We actually have one of the largest databases in ag with our Horizons platform. We've got, I believe it's around 8 billion data points. So we've been taking tests, soil tests. We've been taking core samples. So we're doing 18-inch cores now, and then plus the other soil tests that we've been doing to back up all of this. We know that using less fertilizer and using Holganix, we're seeing nutrient levels go up. We actually have guys who have completely cut P&K out of their fertility program, but yet every time they test, and they're testing more regularly, those tests all go up.
What have their yields been doing? That sounds really good, right? I'm buying a hook, line, and sinker, but what's happening?
Absolutely. Yields are actually going up. Using less nitrogen, using less P&K, using Holganix, and yields are the best they've ever seen. What we say is, you're not going to recognize your farms in 3 years after using Holganix. And you're not going to recognize the soil, but you're not going to recognize those yields. Right. You can look at those best yields you've ever had, and we want to take you to that, be your average. Mm-hmm. We're seeing cutting all of this, but then at the same time, yields are going up, soil tests are going up, and everything else.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I mean, we talk about soil health, and that's pretty loose, right? Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, we've kind of been big on the bacteria and fungi mm-hmm. ratio. Yep. But not very many people, if any, have focused on it, right? Correct. So, that's where I always say that's where the bad guys hang out, on the bacteria side, right? Yep. You know what I mean? That's where we get our crown rots and our red crown rots and sudden death and a lot of those things. Yep. And so it's interesting to hear you talk about increasing fungi to help balance that out. And once we have that ecosystem, right, that's more balanced, correct, we're going to create, I would say, a lot healthier plant from that respect. That's not talking anything about nutrient uptake, though.
Correct.
So the whole nutrient piece is...
The nutrient piece is just one piece of Holganix. All of the other stuff that we're doing, too, are at input savings to the farm. Mm-hmm. When you get that all balanced out, we see less disease pressure, and because of that, less fungicide use. Right. A lot of your diseases are soil-borne. You look at tar spot and different ones. If we can bring in those beneficial fungi, and beneficial protozoa and beneficial nematode, they're going to feed on those parasitic ones, the pathogenic ones. So we see a reduction in that. And changing that soil biology. So what we're doing is, I always ask guys, have you ever had a CRP field? And that's been in a CRP program for 10 or 15 years. You take that out, or you take a fence row out, and you start farming that. You're going to have amazing yields for the first year, 2 years, and then it starts falling off. Well, the reason it starts falling off is all the synthetics we're putting out there, the synthetic fertilizers, synthetic chemicals, our tillage practices, we start killing off that biology. Mother Nature took 10, 15 years to create that biology. Or more. Sometimes it takes 50 years. But what we're doing is we're reintroducing that biology, and we're fast tracking all of that. So we want to turn everything back to that soil health, that soil biology that a CRP field would have after 15 years. Right. We want to bring all that back to life out there.
So I'll take this one step further and say, what are the means of application? What's the timing of application? If I'm buying into what you're saying,
yep.
Tell me more about how it's applied.
Yep. And so what's great about Holganix is the ease of use. We're not asking you to do anything special. Yep. We're just saying get it out there for us. If you're making a pass already, whether it be, we ask that it be applied in the spring and it be applied in the fall. So spring, we want it plus or minus 2 weeks from planting. The fall, we would like it to follow the combine as close as possible, because we're going to work on another piece is the breakdown, the degradation in the fall. But it's ease of use. Don't make an extra pass. If you've got a system on your planter, run it through your planter in furrow, 2x2. If you're doing a burn down pass, put it in with your burn down pass. If you're doing a post pass, put it in there. The only thing you can't mix this with is fungicide. It's going to kill off the fungi in the mix. Right. But just get it out there for us. We haven't seen benefits of in furrow versus broadcast. It all works great. It's just get it out there and let it get to work.
Okay.
And the rate is 1/2 gallon to the acre. So we're not adding a whole lot into that. So if you're running it in furrow, throw it in there, 1/2 gallon with 3 or 5 gallon if you're running fertilizer, or if you're running something else. Same way with broadcast, springtime, 10 to 15 gallon, overall.
What if it's in with a 32% nitrogen application? It's a lot of times a carrier
yep.
with their
perfectly fine. Perfectly fine.
Okay, so
that actually helps it. That acts as a feed source. So we are live and living. Okay. We're not spores. We're not something that needs to start to take off. We're live and living. So as soon as we put that out there, it starts to colonize, it starts to duplicate and replicate and just start growing. Nitrogen is a great feed source for it to really give it that little kick at the beginning and really start going. So it doesn't hurt it at all. Actually, our fall product, we put a little slow release nitrogen in there to act as a feed source to really get it established in the fall.
Okay. Do I need moisture?
So the 2 keys to getting bacteria, fungi, all that to grow is heat and moisture. So it'll lay there dormant and kind of wait for moisture to come. But if we can get it timed right, even in the fall when we're applying it, we say apply it early in the morning, late in the evening when you start to get some dews. That'll help take it off. But yeah, we do need moisture to kind of activate it and get it going, and we need warm temperatures too.
Got it. How else does the program work then? So we don't need to get into cost, right? Because, we just don't normally like to go here. But yep. Tell me more a little bit about how the program works. You want it applied in the spring and in the fall. Yep. I think you mentioned carbon here a little bit. So
yep. So yes, we basically we sell it 2 ways, or we have 2 ways of using it. We call it our brown juice acres, which is, all right, this is going to give you a ton of agronomic benefits. You're going to have a real ROI there. Guys are using it for those purposes. And that's ultimately why it should be used, is because of the agronomic side of things. We found out, and it was another kind of accident, that, hey, we're really increasing the carbon values in the soil. One of the things that we do great is build organic matter. Organic matter is 48% carbon. So we found that in the CO2, the sequestering of carbon, we're actually doing it, sequestering 15 times the carbon that a normal acre would do. And this was kind of by accident that we found this out. We saw all these carbon values going up, and we're like, hey, we got something here. So a typical acre will hold or sequester a third of a ton. A Holganix acre on average is 5 tons, so 15 times more. So we saw that, and we thought, there's got to be a monetary value here. There's something that we could do to help growers out and bring more savings to the farm, but also another revenue stream to the farm. So we started digging into it, and with us sequestering that much more carbon, there is definitely a market for it. So we've also have a carbon program. We call it our Farm Possible program. And basically what it is, there's the requirements are you apply in the spring, you apply in the fall, you agree to reduce your nitrogen down to 0.9 pounds or below. You don't have to cut your P&K, we just ask you to. And then go to a no-till minimum till operation, so 6 inches or less tillage. That's because we don't want the carbon being released back to the atmosphere. Then we have all these carbon insets and offsets that we can then market and sell for you. And the way that works out is if you go into the Farm Possible program, we're actually paying you for that carbon, which covers the product, and then it nets you quite a bit also.
Really? Is that a payout once a year, twice a year?
So it's a payout that we do twice a year. When you're in the carbon program, we're coming out and we're pulling 18-inch cores to test all of this, because we find that with the fungi and everything else in our mix, it's driving that carbon down deep. So we've got to get a baseline. It's a 3-year commitment to be in the program, and then we come back the next fall, the next fall, the next fall. So we get a baseline, and then we test every fall to identify how much carbon is out there. Payments are going to come, so we're getting ready to sign guys up for our 27 crop year. We sold out on our 26 crop year last fall. We're getting guys in line for the 27 crop year. So we would come out and test this fall. You would plant your crop in 27. We'd come out and test again in the fall of 27. We would see what that increase is. Then your first payment would come out in March, and then the March of 28, and then the second payment would be in like August of 28.
Okay.
But we split those payments.
Okay. And so what happens if I'm in it for 3 years, I'm not in it for the 4th year? Would there still be payments because the payments are a year late?
Nope. Well, technically, yes. So
Okay.
the payments, so you'd be in for the year, your payment comes the next year. And so, yes, you would be getting that payment. And then once your 3-year runs out, you could just re-enroll it and go right back in. Yep.
Right. Okay.
We're seeing that carbon market really grow. We're doing everything we can to help push that carbon market. We've got connections we're making. We're talking to companies and everything. I don't see this carbon market going away. If you look at it, the voluntary carbon market right now is about a $5 or $6 billion industry. We see that going in the next 6-8 years, going to probably a $24 billion industry. So that carbon industry is really growing, and more companies are needing to do something to offset their carbon footprint.
Wow. Those are big numbers.
Those are really big numbers, really big numbers.
So how many acres would you like to have? Let's say 2027 rolls around. You sold out at 3 million acres last year for 2026, I should say.
Yep.
Where do you see 2027 going? I mean, is there a production capacity limitation, or is there a program limitation?
Yep.
What do you foresee? What would you like to see?
So production limitation, there is no limitation on production. We just opened a brand new facility in Kansas City. It can produce enough product for 10 million acres a year, and we're currently selling 3 million. So production is not an issue. The only thing is we can sell as much product as we want on agronomic benefits. As far as our Farm Possible carbon program, we are limited on that. We have an allocation of 2 million acres that we're going to add to. So that equates to, for me in Illinois, I've got 200,000 acres to sell in Illinois. When we sell out of those, we're out of them for the program until the 28 program gets opened up. The reason for that is we don't want to flood the marketplace with all of this carbon now. We want to just put enough in there that we can help drive that market, but we don't want to drive the price down on it. So that's why we're only offering, we only have 2 million acres to put into that program, but it's going to go quick too. It's a huge opportunity to be able to get in this because, it's a great piece, but the agronomic side of things is even better.
Yeah.
But if we can put those two together, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen a little bit of this product in the past. It is truly amazing as to what it can do.
Yep.
Stress mitigation I saw was huge, to be honest with you. So
and that all comes from we're lowering the bulk density of that soil. So therefore we're raising the water holding capacity, we're increasing organic matter. In a drought year, you're going to see a Holganix acre under less stress. It's not going to roll. It's not going to, be stressed out like the neighboring acre would be. So a happy plant is a healthy plant, and ultimately a higher yielding plant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's a whole nother side of it that, in the oxygen piece, the permeability, all those things are a big piece of the puzzle that
Exactly.
1 and 1 equals 3 on pretty quickly.
Yep. Yep. I mean, like I said, we see the changing in bulk density, the lowering of bulk density. If you change a tenth of a percent or a tenth of a point, it's huge.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing 2 to 3 points change or tenths change. So we're lowering that bulk density, which is allowing better water infiltration, but then raising water holding capacity. We're seeing that organic matter just increasing, sometimes a whole percentage.
Wow.
We're seeing guys have to do less tillage. Guys that are typically pulling deep rippers and chisel plows through the field have sold their rippers. We've got a customer over in Missouri, river bottom ground, farmed some of the nastiest muck gumbo there is. He'd rip the ground twice in the fall, rip it again in the spring, level it off and plant it. He became a customer of ours about 3 years ago, and the first year we told him, hey, you're going to end up selling your ripper. You're not going to rip this ground anymore. He thought we were crazy. He's just like, there's no way. The guy doesn't own a ripper anymore. He went from using 12 semi-loads of fuel down to 4 semi-loads of fuel. So that's an input savings.
Mm-hmm.
Not having to wear and tear on that machine going across the field.
And yields have stayed up?
And yields are better than he has ever seen them. Better than he has ever seen them.
Wow.
It's crazy.
How long has he been using it?
I think he's going on 3 years now.
Yeah. Because, the soil hasn't gotten where it is overnight, right?
Correct.
So we're obviously not going to change it overnight, but
correct.
That's why I asked how long. So 3 years is...
So we see a benefit. You'll start to see benefits after one application. When I talk bulk density and I talk water infiltration, there was a third-party study done where it was one application of Holganix, and they tested every month the water infiltration and how that went up. And by July, after that first application, water infiltration was up 64%.
Wow.
It was crazy the amount of water going into that. What we like to say is, if you've got a field that's borderline, should I tile it, should I not? Put Holganix down. I bet you're not going to tile that ground. Now, tile has its place.
Sure.
It works really good, but we're going to increase the effectiveness of tile too.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to help so much water go in.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to see less runoff, so less erosion. Your ditches aren't going to be full, and the neighbor's ditches are going to be full. Right. So we've got that water in the soil that we're able to hold on to when it does turn off dry.
Right. That's awesome. That's huge.
Yep.
I mean, water holding capacity is the key to the game, and then oxygen is the other piece, and those two go hand in hand. So.
Correct. Yep. You change that aggregate of that soil, and you open it up, and it allows more oxygen to get in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. So, what do we need to do if we want to get in the program? Contact one of the reps you have.
Yep.
And get more information.
Correct.
And you have product for acres for applications this spring if someone wants to get involved, right?
If somebody wants to get involved this spring, absolutely, we got a ton of product. If you want to, if we can guarantee your acres going into the program this fall if you buy some product from us this spring.
Okay.
We're going ahead and securing those acres and essentially saving a guy's spot in line. Mm-hmm. So if you purchase some product from us this spring, become a customer, we'll be able to lock in your acres for this fall. It's easy to get in. Like I said, you just got to do the 2 applications. We've got a really easy application to fill out. Once you fill that out, then we acquire your field boundaries. We put that into our system. You approve those, and then you sign a contract, and you're in the program.
Okay. Sounds easy.
really easy.
Yeah. Is there anything else we need to know? Anything else you'd like to share about Holganix or the process or
I mean,
the
we
benefits?
covered quite a bit of stuff there. It's to tell you the truth, we're not doing anything special. It's Mother Nature that's doing it. We've just found that magic mix that has everything in it that you need out there. We're reintroducing that predator. We're reintroducing that biology out there. You know, a lot of college professors, when you talk soil to them, if you ever say dirt, they hate it when you say dirt.
Yeah.
But I hate to say it a lot that we have out there is dirt, and how can we take it from dirt back to soil? And that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, the monocrop, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've taken a lot of the products out of the rotation, whether it's wheat, clovers, oats, alfalfa, radishes, whatever the case might be, and
Yep.
that's I don't want to say that's the reason that we've been led to this path, but we've taken a lot of diversity out,
Correct.
and that's taken a lot of species that are sometimes healthy for our soils,
Correct.
aka fungi,
Correct.
and created a bacteria heavy. And, we fight those bacteria, from an agronomy side, walking fields, we see a lot of those issues. And,
Yep.
they're painful and everybody wants to know. It's like, how do I eliminate red crown rot? How do
Yep.
I eliminate charcoal rot? How do I eliminate, all these different diseases in our fields? And, crown rot, these are big yielders, right?
Oh, yeah.
Red crown rot will come in on soybeans and corn can get it as well. We've seen that.
Yep.
But, a lot of times it'll come in and take 15 and 20
Oh,
bushels.
yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
So let's not use synthetics. Let's use
Exactly.
Mother Nature to do it.
Right.
And that's the thing about our product. We call it Bio 800. We call it Bio 800 Plus. It's because we have over 800 species in that.
Mm-hmm.
Over 600 species of bacteria, over 300 species of fungi. We've got protozoa. We've got beneficial nematodes. And what's really neat about our product too is we DNA fingerprint every batch that we make, so we know exactly what's in there. So we've got everything covered. We've probably got close to 2,000 species in our mix, but because of California labeling laws, we're only able to say 800. But we've got everything in there that you need to do everything.
Right. Awesome. Well, it sounds like a great opportunity to bring some soil health back and some beneficial fungi and beneficial bacteria as well.
Absolutely.
So,
Yep.
all right. Awesome. Well, we look forward to trying some of it this year.
Yeah.
And seeing what we can do to help change things, I'll say, from the ground up.
Yeah.
So,
Perfect.
all right.
Perfect. I appreciate you having me on here today.
Thank you for coming out and making the trip. And appreciate your time on the show.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Bryan.
Yep.